Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is 5:30, and I think most folks, are here now. I do see quite a few CSC members, so we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to our 55th South Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting. My name is Liz, and I am joined here tonight by my colleagues and co-facilitators, Amy and Bekela, from the Harder & Company facilitation team. As usual, we will be working behind the scenes to take attendance, offer technical assistance, and general support to ensure that everyone here is able to engage fully in tonight's meeting. If at any point you are having trouble with Zoom or interpretation or have any questions about anything else, please feel free to reach out to any one of us and we are happy to help. So before we open it up for our usual welcome and introductions, let us just take a few minutes to walk through our housekeeping slides. So on my screen, hopefully you are all seeing our typical housekeeping slide with information on how to select your Zoom interpretation channel. So for those who are monolingual English speakers, you can select the globe interpretation button on the bottom part of your screen, select the English interpretation channel, and then mute original audio. If you are on a phone or tablet, feel free to click those three dots to select your interpretation channel. And then for those monolingual English speakers, you would select English. And to give those same instructions in Spanish, I would like to invite Diana.
Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos. El día de hoy tenemos disponible interpretación en español para aquellos que lo necesiten. Si están conectados desde una computadora, en la parte inferior del menú de Zoom van a ver el icono de un mundo. Seleccionan y luego pueden seleccionar español y silenciar el audio original. Y si están conectando desde una tableta o desde su dispositivo móvil, por favor toquen su pantalla, seleccionan los 3 puntos, luego seleccionan interpretación de idiomas, seleccionamos español, silenciar el audio original y para finalizar su opción, seleccione finalizado, terminado o listo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just a correction on those instructions for English speakers. It was noted in the chat, there's no need to select mute original audio. We'll just pause here. Is everyone able to select their interpretation channel? Anyone having any trouble? Okay. So moving on your screen, you are seeing our renaming conventions, which again are important for our attendance tracking and stipend distribution process. So we ask that for those who are a member of the CSC, please indicate that in your Zoom name by either noting CSC or putting an R if you are a resident. If you are not a member of the CSC, we ask that you write your organization name in your Zoom name so that we have a better idea of who is here. If you are a member of the public, we also ask that you put a P in front of your name as well. Moving on to our virtual meeting etiquette, please make sure to stay muted unless you are speaking. If you are joining by phone only, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you have a question or any thought that you would like to share, we ask that you raise your Zoom hand. If you are on the phone and would like to speak and participate, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. And then there's another reminder here for residents in the stipend program to stay on for at least 90 minutes of our 2 hours to be eligible for the stipend. On this slide, this is a review of our group agreements. So everyone here has agreed to help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. We want to make sure that we are mindful of creating space for everyone here to participate. We also ask for everyone to be kind and respectful, knowing that it is okay for us to disagree as long as we do it with respect and with empathy. In these meetings, we've also agreed to stay on point and on time. So please try to keep your comments brief so that everyone can have a chance to participate. As we've said before, we do recognize the urgency and importance of these conversations and definitely don't want to cut them short. And we also do want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So our team will be doing our best to keep us on track and on time. And in the case where we're running a little behind, we'll check in with the CSC to see how you would like to proceed with the remaining agenda. Next, we also agreed to attack the problem and not the person. And then finally, we have agreed to seek common ground. Building consensus and finding shared values will help us all achieve the best results. So here's our agenda for this evening. As a reminder, the agenda topics are representative of those that are requested by CSC members, which have come through previous CSC meetings, as well as past agenda setting meetings. And for tonight, we will start with our usual welcome and opening remarks in just a moment. Then you may notice that the order of tonight's agenda is slightly different. So instead of starting with our action item review, tonight we will jump right into our main agenda item, which is our quarterly air monitoring update from the Air District, CARB, and our co-host, Kimberly. This is to ensure that the committee has enough time to engage with the air monitoring presentation and provide thoughtful feedback, recognizing the importance of this work and all of the effort that folks have put into ensuring that this presentation is responsive to CSC requests and concerns. And so after that, we will have our usual standing updates, and then we will still have our action item tracker update and review before we move to wrapping up our meeting with our usual review of tonight's action items, next steps, and then our final public comment for the evening. So stop sharing my screen and we can, as long as everybody is okay with the interpretation and no issues have come up, we can move forward with our welcoming remarks. So as part of our welcome and introductions for this evening, I am very happy and excited to invite our co-host, Kimberly, to help get us started with some opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and it's good to see everybody. I am co-hosting. I can't remember the number of times that I have done this, but it has been a lot. And I hope that you get a lot out of the community air monitoring update. We tried to make it really to where it's easy to understand, easy to follow along. And we ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation because it's a lot of information to get to. So we do ask that you kind of note what slides you have questions on and then hold them to the end for us. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Brian, would you like to share some opening remarks?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. Really want to take the time to thank Kimberly for all the work that her and her coworkers did in spending time with us to really focus in the information on key points and, like Kim said, make it understandable to the CSC audience. You know, we had several meetings with Kimberly to make sure that we did our best to get it right. You know, we're definitely looking to get a lot of feedback. We have some kind of key information into the data that's in there, and looking to take action based on the information that's collected and presented, and want to hear everybody's feedback on that. So really looking forward to everybody's participation, and thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, so we can move forward and jump into the air monitoring update. So again, the purpose of this quarterly air monitoring update is not only to inform the CSC of the latest data that has been gathered from your community air monitoring program, but also, as Kimberly and Ryan have mentioned, to present the data in a way where it's easily understandable and encourages everyone in this meeting to think critically about what this all means and how this data can be used to improve the air quality in your community. As our co-host mentioned, she's done a lot of work with her team behind the scenes with the Air District and CARB to make sure that this is presented in a thoughtful and clear way, really taking in the feedback that the CSC has shared in past meetings. So this presentation will take around 40 minutes. And as Kimberly mentioned, the presenters are asking that folks hold your questions until the end of the presentation. You'll notice that there are numbers on each of the slides. And so if you are writing down a question, it could be helpful to note that slide number so that we can reference it when we come back to that time for discussion. And as always, feel free to put your questions in the chat. And as we go through the presentation, we will take note of those and make sure that those get read aloud and addressed when we are in that time for question and discussion. And so with that, I am happy to pass it off to, I think, the Air District or Kimberly to get us started.
I can get us started. We're going to do the community air monitoring update. It's a really long presentation, but with a lot of information. And again, like Liz said, and Ryan has said, and I have stated before, that please note what questions you have, which slide number, and hold your questions to the end, because we're going to we really want to get through the presentation. I really want you guys to see the whole presentation because it has a lot of information on it. So again, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and I can pass it off to Robert and his team to get us started.
Thank you, Kimberly. My name's Arena, and I am an air quality specialist with the Air District. So welcome to the update on the South Central Fresno Community Air Monitoring meeting. So as a reminder, this is the layout of the South Central Fresno community with the boundary and the monitors on the map. Here is what some of the instrumentation looks like. And here is one of our air monitoring vans. This is just a reminder of the ongoing air monitoring efforts in the community. The district is continuing to monitor and conduct localized air monitoring in the South Central Fresno community. We've fully deployed air monitoring platforms across the community according to the CSC recommended network design. Air monitoring van used to regularly monitor pollutants in the areas of interest of the community. And we are conducting extensive PM2.5 and VOC speciation sampling and laboratory analysis. And we will continue to seek input from the CSC for suggestions. These are the topics we will talk about today. I am planning to stop at certain points during this presentation for questions and feedback as we go. So today we'll cover CARB's AQView community data webpage. PM25 was higher than previous quarters. November and December PM25 show expected winter increases. PM25 was higher in areas surrounded by residences, wood burning from fireplaces, outdoor fire pits may be a contributor. PM25 lower in areas surrounded by agricultural land, such as Madison and Malaga. And we'll also show the lab analysis of the PM25 components. Ammonium nitrate is the main reason PM25 increases in the wintertime, and wood burning is happening since wood burning compound levoglucosan is present. This is just a summary of the air monitoring data from October to December. This shows the concentrations and where the sites are located. Here we can see that Edison was the highest during this period of time. And as Edison, as we know, is surrounded by residences. The lowest PM25 average over this time period was at Malaga and Madison. All locations had lower averages in October to December of 2022 than in the same months for the years 2020 and 2021. Throughout today's presentation, we will explore the differences between community sites this winter compared to previous years. And these are the average annual PM25 values. Other years had challenges, including wildfires and drought. We brought in 2019 data to compare to the 2022 data, as 2019 did not have severe wildfire or exceptional drought impacts. Although the South Central Fresno community monitoring sites were not operational yet, we wanted to show what the data might look like with fewer severe impacts from events like wildfires. As you can see, Edison and West Fresno monitoring locations have the highest PM25 levels in 2022, shown here and here. So what causes PM25 levels to be higher in the winter? Here, we just want to give some background about what causes pollution to be greater in the wintertime. And looking at the picture on the right, we can see that increasing altitude is going upward and decreasing temperature is represented by moving left. A temperature inversion layer is a layer of air above the ground that has a higher temperature. Air temperature should decrease as elevation increases away from the ground. A temperature inversion prevents air and pollution from lifting away from the ground and acts like a lid over the valley. Pollution becomes trapped under the inversion lid and builds up, causing higher PM25 pollution concentrations at the ground level where people and air monitors are located. Temperature inversions can be present throughout the year, but are more constant during wintertime. We will talk more about how this affected the data in the following slides by showing what the pollution values look like during the winter season. So here we are looking at monthly average data and shows that during the winter months, we do see higher PM25 values. You can see here that Edison was higher than other sites, primarily in the winter time. And Edison PM25 concentrations from March to October is comparable to other sites within the South Central Fresno community. The following slides will look more closely at the data for November and December. We wanted to take a closer look at October we wanted to take a closer look at the October to December time period, and looking at the daily average concentrations in November, you can see that it is higher. Most days are in the good to moderate category. The valley is a bowl that sometimes has an invisible lid over us in the winter, and this causes pollution to be trapped. The lid over the valley was very strong in November, causing a spike in PM2.5 levels everywhere. And over the holidays, when the lid is strong, we tend to see more pollution where folks live. For example, Roosevelt and Edison are in very populated neighborhoods, and we see a peak on Thanksgiving. We have more analysis on these locations on the next slide. But to reiterate, the lid over the valley was not as strong during December than it was in November. There was more wind flow and air movement in December than in November, which caused for less pollution to build up in December than in November. Sorry. Now we will take a closer look at the hourly PM2.5 values collected during that holiday. Looking at that time of day, when we start to see higher concentrations, it was during the evening hours into the overnight and into the next morning. This is the time of day when there is the least air movement and calm winds, so the pollution can build up more when there is wood burning occurring, because it's colder at night, and it is typically when we can expect to see people use their fireplaces or outdoor fire pits, which is why which could be caused by wood burning. I'm sorry. Some of the data we have seen so far would suggest that wood burning could be a contributor to the high PM2.5 values. We will circle back to that in the slides later in slides later in the presentation. But I will pause here briefly and ask for any questions about the data before we move on to the actions the district is taking to inform you about situations like this.
Actually, if it's okay, I'll step in here real quick, Arena. If maybe let's just adapt and we'll follow some of the guidance in the earlier part of the introduction here. Let's keep moving and we'll have everybody save their questions.
Sure.
So thank you for stopping, Phil.
Sure. Okay, as we said earlier, the lid over the valley is based on temperature differences, which tends to make the lid very strong at night. And in the cold months over the holidays, we also see increased wood burning and illegal open burning at night, combined with the very low wind speed. We see increases in PM2.5 concentration. Here are some examples of what the district does to inform the public when there is high pollution or when pollution is expected to be high. These schools participate in the Healthy Air Living program. News releases are issued before known and expected high pollution days. The district will post updates to social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. And these are just examples of things we have done during these periods of stability to inform the community that we are expecting poor dispersion conditions due to stability. So we just saw what the district is doing to inform the community about stable conditions and poor dispersion. Here is what we are doing to understand the causes of high PM2.5 within the South Central Fresno community. We have inspectors and air monitoring operators who are looking for activity around the area. And we also started lab analysis of PM2.5 air samples. The next slides will show you what that looks like. And then later in the presentation, we will show you the lab analysis of the PM2.5 air samples. So based on air quality measurements, air quality inspectors regularly go to areas of concern to determine potential causes of elevated PM2.5. Inspectors conduct surveillance in the evening and early morning hours. And this GPS mapping here ensures the surveillance route does not overlap with another inspector's route as well. And this is just a snapshot in time of a single day for one inspector. And the next slide details what one inspector saw in just one day. Here, the air monitoring site at Edison is depicted in yellow by the yellow triangle. The inspector found smoking chimneys to the northwest of Edison High School. And on this specific day, December 15th, was a no burning for all day. Notices of violations were issued. We also have few homeless camps near Edison as well, where smoke odor was detected. And over here, there was smoke odor detected, but they could not find anything as it was dark and foggy. And PM2.5 24-hour average for that specific day, December 15th, was 39.4 at Edison. So those were just snapshots, and this is a more complete look of what happens throughout the entire winter season. Enforcement happens throughout the community boundary. The district responds to community complaints and concerns. Focused enforcement efforts when air monitoring shows that air quality is poor, and increased surveillance on no burn days. The 102 citations issued in the South Central Fresno community from November to February of 2022 to 2023. I'm sorry. And as we mentioned earlier, we would talk about the lab analysis. These are the different components that make up PM2.5. Normally, ammonium nitrate is increased during the winter time. Another major component is organic carbon, and within organic carbon, a wood burning tracer that we are looking at is levoglucosan. The wood burning category isn't the only category within organic carbon component, but can be part of other components as well. And here is what we can expect when we have a good air quality day. This is what it looks like. And this is what we can expect when we have a moderate air quality day. This is what we can expect to see during a winter day when conditions are stable. Compared to this is what we can expect to see when there are significant wood burning impacts. The organic carbon portion is larger. And summer of 2021 was impacted by wildfires. Organic carbon is higher in in October. Ammonium nitrate is higher in November and December. So we have been talking so far about how it could be wood burning, but we have done some initial analysis to help us understand the impacts from wood burning. As an example, we can see here are some compounds and chemicals that are present in wood smoke and other types of combustion. Levoglucosan is monitored because it is not from other types of combustion. And levoglucosan is only present from wood smoke. So that is why levoglucosan is the wood burning tracer we're looking at. So how can we tell if the PM2.5 is from wood burning? As I mentioned before, there's a compound called levoglucosan that can help let us know whether PM2.5 we collected came from wood burning. Based on the CSC and district concerns, we began testing in October of 2022. On several days, the marker for wood burning is higher than average and close to the maximum. This can mean that wood burning of any kind is occurring, including residential and illegal open burning. The next few slides are about the new tool from the California Air Resources Board. Some of their staff is in attendance as well. I will pass it over to Emily.
Hello. Thank you so much for letting me join today. So my name is Emily Gorey, and I'm from the AQView team at CARB. And I just wanted to give you guys a brief and exciting update to let you know that our air quality map is now live. For those of you who may not be familiar with AQView, AQView is our online data portal that we have been building at CARB with the goal of providing the latest and most up-to-date information on the AB 617 communities and the associated community air monitoring efforts. But also because there is so much data, we recognize there's so much data out there, and there are a lot of tools that people have been building that are scattered across the internet. We thought it was really important to bring everything together and to really create a single place for people to access data, not just from AB 617, but from other air monitoring efforts throughout the state as well. And then alongside that, another goal of ours is to not just bring all the data together, but to build AQView with simple, intuitive, user-friendly, and also mobile-friendly interfaces to view the data and determine real-time exposure. So we have really, go back one slide. Thank you. We have kept these goals that are shown here really close to our hearts as we've developed AQView. And we really hope to achieve them through the tools that we've created, which include our data download tool. The data download tool was the first piece of AQView that we built, and it gives you full access to the AB 617 monitoring data, as well as other data sets that we will include in AQView in the future. And then now, as I mentioned, we also have our map, which recently went live. And this map is currently focused on PM 2.5, but will include more pollutants in the future. And then it's worth mentioning that within this map, we also have built in a graphing tool, which you can use to analyze recent trends by selecting one or more sites from the map. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we really want AQView to be this kind of one-stop shop for data access. And so to make this happen, we will continue to work with the Air District and others to bring more data into AQView over time. But actually, there's quite a bit of data already available in AQView from your community. We have data dating back all the way to March of 2019 for a wide variety of pollutants. You guys are monitoring for PM 2.5, PM10, nitrogen oxides, ozone, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, BTEX, and more, depending on the location, of course. And then you also have your air monitoring bin, which has collected data throughout the community. And all of these data can be accessed through our download tools that we have built into AQView. And of course, the PM 2.5 can now be viewed on the map, with more to come in the future. Since you don't need a login, like a password or login information to access anything, everything in AQView is open to the public. I really encourage everybody to go and check out and explore your data in AQView. Next slide, please. And so we have some pretty big goals with building AQView. As I mentioned, we really want to bring the data together into one place, but we really want to make it a user-friendly experience. So as you explore your data in AQView, if you have anything you would like to share about your experience using our website, please let us know through our feedback tool. We built this feedback tool so that hopefully it would be easy for you to submit your thoughts and not too much effort on your part. And just so that we can know where we're doing well and where some improvements can be made as well. And that way we can use this information to build AQView to best suit your needs. So you can access our feedback tool through the link shown on the screen, or by scanning the QR code with your phone. Or if you visit aqview.arb.ca.gov, you'll view our AQView homepage, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom there, the link is there as well. So thank you again so much for your time. And it looks like Eugene and Brian Moore put the link in the chat for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. So summary and next steps. PM2.5 speciation sampling and analysis at Edison will continue. The trends are typical for the winter time with increases in ammonium nitrate. Historical trends of wood burning tracers like levoglucosan show wintertime increases. More data, community feedback, and analysis between district, CARB, and the Desert Research Institute to further understand possible causes for increased PM2.5 in the community during winter. Questions for the community. Did you receive alerts? Do you think your neighbors know how to check the air quality? And how can we make sure people are better prepared to protect their health? Oops. And that's all I have for today.
Can you go leave that slide up there for a second of the questions to get people going?
I think. Yeah. So I don't want to step on Liv's toes, but if maybe to kind of kick things off a little bit to help start the conversation. Some of the things like we talked about, we're still seeing issues with wood burning smoke happening within the community. Some additional information that wasn't provided that we got later on. We also, through this effort, reached out to the fire department that's closest to Edison High School and try to get a sense of how many phone calls, reports of burning that they received. And we looked at the time period from November 1st through the end of February. And so during that time period, they had 292 total calls, 252 of which were specific about outside rubbish fires. So we know that that is an issue, and there is a measure in the CERT that talks about it's the importance of the subcommittee for outreach and how do we continue to educate and reach out to the community to make them aware of the problem of burning and the impacts, in addition to fireplace burning, which we based on finding over 100 violations during this last season within the community, it continues to be a problem as well. And we understand it's a complex issue, a lot of different factors, costs of heating one's home, dramatically increased. And so we're very understanding of those circumstances. But at the same time, we're talking about people's health. And so, how do we work together to build a strategy to reduce what we're seeing out there. And so I think when we're talking about did you receive alerts, I mean, is it something that not only you, but I mean your family, your friends, the rest of your community, are they aware on tools and resources and how to use them? So looking to get some feedback there, like what's more that can be done to change the behavior that we're seeing. And I don't think anybody, I think it always starts with an education. I always, first assumption I make is people don't know They're not doing it because they're trying to violate our rules and regulation. I think it's just a lack of knowledge or understanding in the majority of the cases that we find. For example, with the violations that we issue, we very rarely find people repeating we very rarely find repeat offenders. It's usually one time. A lot of times they go through a training course with us. We educate them, and then we don't see that as being an issue anymore. But we would much rather be on the opposite side of how do we educate them to prevent any violations from happening. And I don't know if it was really clear. One of the pictures in the enforcement slide, it was actually some of the encampments. There were several burn scars on the ground. So I mean, it is an issue, and homelessness is also a very challenging issue, and we understand that there's no easy fixes for some of these situations.
Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
Yes, if I understood, Ryan, what you said, there was actually more rubbish fires than illegal fireplace fires around Edison during that time period. And I was wondering, is there anything that could be done to eliminate the rubbish rather than burning it? Is there some means, especially with homeless and whatnot, that rubbish or whatever could be picked up, by garbage disposal companies, or in other words, for people to avoid burning? Is there some other means that they could just as easily get rid of their rubbish or whatever they're burning? It's just a question.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. We definitely have looked into what resources are available to help people that don't already have waste disposal services to their homes, and looking to connect people to those in the past. We can definitely look into what's available within the city of Fresno in the way of programs to assist people that are having a hard time with paying for those services or may not have those services.
Yeah, Ryan, even people that have services, sometimes it's difficult to get rid of certain types of rubbish or whatever. That's where the pickup things that they have periodically in the city and so forth work well. I don't know if certain areas need more of that type of pickup from the street that would discourage burning or not. Maybe the city would have some input on that.
Thank you, Bill. That was a great question. I'm not sure if we have folks from the city on the call right now to chime in.
So this is Jennifer Clark with the city. We can certainly take that back. There's not a resource specifically right now to provide those services, but I will certainly communicate that back.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, Ed, go ahead. Did you have a question, Ed?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I apologize.
No
For those of us that know the cost of disposing of rubbish, it's I have empathy for the city, for sanitation, but the cost of getting rid of garbage is just incredibly excessive, in my opinion, and providing a methodology for the lower income to dispose of some of this might make a significant difference. Thank you. I see what I did. I raised my hand and turned off my video when I thought I had done the other, so I apologize.
No worries. Thank you, Ed. And there's some agreement with you in the chat too. Sounds like there is an opportunity there to learn more about ways to prevent folks who might be burning their rubbish, who might otherwise have no way to dispose of it, because that can definitely be a struggle. Are there any other thoughts? Yeah, Ivanka, go ahead.
Thanks for the presentation, you guys. Just on the questions about receiving alerts and how that can be improved. Living in West Fresno, I know that the Air District has put out previously different commercials, but they're not specific enough that it's actually going to help make a change, I don't think. I mean, we've had the clean, don't burn day type of advertisements. Is there anything that can be done as far as if we're already receiving our information in the mail, that there's mailers sent out, or if there's something, it is still the same issue of being too digital in an area that is still relying on traditional ways of communications. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to making sure that alerts are given, yes, through the schools. Somebody might be able to tell me why the schools had to get rid of the flags, but it was a visual. It's in your face when you go to schools. I can't remember why that was changed, but I think it really helped parents when they're seeing drop off to see the color of an air flag every morning next to the American flag that's in the front of the school. Like, it was kind of hard to miss, especially when the red ones are up there. And I don't know why we got away from that, or if it was thought that it wasn't accurate enough, but it was helpful. And it allowed for there to be accountability to the schools, as well as for parents to know, is it okay that I'm sending my child to school? Is the school actually going to protect my child if I drop them off on a bad air day, if they're an asthmatic? So like actual physical forms of alerts still are very needed in an area that is not that digital, as well as just that visual. And then the next question, do you think neighbors know how to check the air quality? Again, I don't think that's clear enough. Is it a possibility to, when you're sending out mailers, that you're having a QR code that is digital, but almost everyone's cell phones do have the Play Store, the App Store, the map, that allows them to download new apps? Like, is it as simple as giving that type of direction? I don't know. It might seem basic, but I think some of our awareness is lacking because some basic steps have been missed. Yeah, and I just wanted to make points clear about the alerts, and that in the community of Southwest Fresno that I live in, that it's still not in the front of people's minds, or it just can't be, because if they're required to have to walk and take a bus, they can't worry about it. I kind of joke about the fact that our valley, we needed to be wearing masks long before COVID ever came along on a daily basis. So I do think there's some more need to just trying to get back to some of the basics. Thank you.
I can address some of those comments if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, Ivanka, I think you're 100% on track as to, how we need to make sure that we are reaching people in a way where they can consume the information. We have looked at a direct mail piece we could probably do maybe a couple of direct mails, but to do one kind of envelope is about $15,000 that's just for the Fresno area. A bilingual piece that would be spent out. So we can definitely do that. My question for you guys would be, what would you want the messages on them? And yes, we are getting into the habit of putting QR codes on just about everything that we generate so that we can send them to a website. And then I think the thing that has been most helpful with regard to people understanding air quality and some of the stuff that we've been doing is that we're physically out at schools in the mornings a couple times a year, going from car to car, dropping off packets of information. And it's usually a bilingual team that's out there. We, of course, have to get permission from the schools to do it. And we try to do it going into the kind of fall season, kind of wildfire fall, kind of August, September, back to school season. And we do plan to do that again this coming year and really have those one-on-one conversations with parents. The reason that the flag program went away was that it wasn't accurate. And what was happening is on both sides, we had times when the flag would say that the air quality was in the red zone, and it actually wasn't. It was actually pretty good. We'll see different kind of daily cycles of air quality that it might actually be really good in the morning or around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on the season. And then maybe late in the evening or maybe during the heat of the day, we might see the highest readings. And it just was not giving the correct information out to anyone who was driving by. We do have a tool, and they are in quite a few schools. And if you want, we can come back and go really in detail about all our work in schools. But we have what are called reads. They're real-time. I forget what the E stands for. Read, real-time electronic air quality displays. It's late. And basically what these are big monitors, and sometimes they are, say, in a school front office, and they're facing out onto the street so that parents or whoever's driving by can see them. Sometimes we even have had some schools that have incorporated into like monitors that they have throughout the school, so that wherever the kids might be, that on one side it's the lunch menu and on the other side it's our real-time electronic air quality display. And those change on an hourly by hourly basis, so that we still had that visual tool, which we agree, a visual tool is great, but that it was more accurate air quality data. It's not quite as visually catchy as the flags. In talking to schools, we've even discussed, maybe they could change the flag on an hourly basis as air quality changes. We have very few, I think we have 2 or 3 schools in the entire valley that do that, but for the most part, it becomes a resource issue, and they can't really, they don't really have the manpower to be going out and changing it on a regular basis. But I do think that getting information in the hands of people is key. I will also tell you that everyone's having an event these days. We were just talking with Lilia earlier today about an event that she has coming up, and we're trying to make sure that we're prioritizing those events in our AB 617 communities with our bilingual staff. There is nothing, I think, that is better for really connecting with folks than having that kind of one-on-one in-person conversation with them. And so hope that's happening more and more, and we're excited to see that happening more and more. But we are doing whatever, and it sounds like this is the second time direct mail has come up, and I think maybe we'll look into actually getting something maybe bring in it next meeting for you guys to look at a direct mail piece that perhaps we can get ready to send out to residents in the AB 617 community.
Thank you, Jamie. Ryan, I noticed your hand was up and then you just put it down. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I wanted to let Lily and Bill go.
For sure. Bill, I think your hand was up first. Go ahead.
Yes, Jamie, in relation to the real-time electronic display, are those very expensive? You know, it sounds like the amount of cost just to send out a mailer, you know, would add up if those could be attached maybe to some of the schools have signs outside or even in other public places. Is it possible to create an electronic monitor that would automatically change during the day as things change, where maybe even there's you know, businesses that would install them at their properties, you know, just as a public service type of thing. If that technology is easily available, where it would just automatically change, and whether it's at a school or whether it's at a grocery store or wherever it might be, it might be a way to notify the public on what the air quality conditions are.
Yeah, and it's very inexpensive. And a lot of schools, if they already have a display, which most of the schools already do, we just have a URL that basically feeds the information to them. And we'd be happy to share that with anyone who wanted to put it up. I will tell you that the really large school displays, we worked with actually CCAC, Central California Asthma Collaborative, years and years ago. And the challenge with those bigger displays is that there's many, many different types, and they don't all have the ability to get kind of regular incoming dynamic data that feeds to them. So that's kind of why these monitors are what we use and what we focused on. We even looked into purchasing something like what's outside Manchester Center, but that's like about $250,000. The other thing to note too is that the information is specific to that location. So, you know, the information that might be displayed at Roosevelt High School would be different than the information that's displayed at Edison High School. So, you know, you don't want to be too kind of general with it, because you don't want to have people think that if they're passing by a sign on one side of town, that air quality is going to be the same on the other side of town.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Lilia, go ahead.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos. Sí, es verdad, están comunicados conmigo y también nosotros nos hemos ofrecido como organización y como residentes del área. Nosotros tenemos distribución todos los viernes. Vienen padres de familia de la escuela Van Pound, de la escuela Sequoia, de la escuela Jackson, de la escuela Lane, vienen de diferentes partes de aquí del ABS 17. Entonces, me gustaría que ustedes nos proporcionaran, si es posible, cada viernes información actualizada para poder compartir con ellos cada viernes. Tenemos despensas aproximadamente para 100 o 120 familias. Entonces, sería una buena opción, ya que nosotros estamos precisamente enfrente de la escuela Wincho, y también nos ofrecemos a poner, si es posible, la banderilla, dependiendo lo que usted nos diga, para poder alertar a los padres, ya que por donde estamos nosotros ubicados, los padres pasan a recoger y a dejar a sus niños a la escuela. Entonces, sería una idea que nos ponemos como familias en acción a ser parte de esto para hacer el cambio y notificar a los padres que van dejando a sus niños que cómo se encuentra el aire en ese momento, para que así mismo, si las escuelas no están al corriente, podemos actualizarlo también nosotros por medio de la organización. Tenemos el evento 5 de mayo, es un evento donde estamos esperando alrededor de 500 personas. Vamos a promoverlo para tener diferentes recursos, y uno de ellos va a ser que esté Joaquín Aire y Contaminantes participando con nosotros y dando información también de lo actualizado que tengan para nosotros.
%, Lilia. I'll have my team get in touch with you and we will give you information for the Friday updates. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lilia. Ivanka, go ahead.
This was just more of a question that might lead into a suggestion unless it's already being done. Does the Air District have like standing quarterly meetings with the Department of Public Health? And if they don't, then can there be like the people that are Department of Public Health and whoever are the lead directors of health for the school districts with the Air District, more of a top-down approach so that it might help the bottom approach as well? If you have a top-down approach of having these lead directors from these three agencies have an agreeable plan of how to outreach and share air quality information so that when the Air District is reaching out to individual schools, they won't be allowed to give pushback, that they already have to be accepting of something that is being promoted by the Air District. And like you said, Jamie, it might be a little bit different for each school because of its location. Data is going to be different because of the location, but is there already something set of some form of plan of action, a health plan of action that is already agreed to of what is that protection of respiratory health for students generally in this area? And, we're talking like not necessarily agreement, but in the world of health, you actually have to have protocols. So what does that health protocol look like between these different agencies for the sake of children? And whatever that protocol comes about, then that has to be shared at the individual schools with their principals at the local individual level of a school to make it easier for when you're trying to I know, was that already 2 years ago? Well, a year and a half, when you guys helped at my child's school in downtown Fresno. It's like we're working in a school that is completely oblivious near a road that leads to the freeway of the impacts. And you really had to educate this school to make them follow certain protocols. So if there was already guidance given at a higher level, they have to be more accepting of it at an individual level. And it might actually help lower the amount of capacity efforts that you're having to do. Because I know a lot of times, Jamie, you've said in the past, like, we're trying again, and you're trying to get that ear of listening to come in from different districts or different specific schools. So that's just another thought that maybe it can help with the schools a little better.
Yeah, and Ivanka, again, you kind of nailed our strategy. Our strategy is a top-down, bottom-up approach for our Healthier Living Schools program. We have we have a template policy that we encourage school districts to adopt at the board level. And some school districts have adopted it. Fresno Unified's adopted it. And it basically says that they will follow our real-time outdoor activity recommendations, or what we call our ROAR recommendations. Okay. And these are recommendations that were developed for schools in conjunction with American Lung Association, Central California Asthma Collaborative, UCSF. And they take into account that we're really talking about children, and we're talking about them most likely elevating their respiratory rate. So the things that we are telling them to do and the recommendations that are in these guidelines don't necessarily line up with the AQI. They're a little bit more stringent because the assumption is that these kids will be outside. They're maybe at PE playing, maybe they're at a sporting event and they're breathing faster. So what we found is you've got to do both sides of it. You've got to go, with the teachers and the parents and have them pushing, and then the administrators, the principal, the school district. The other thing that we're constantly working on is that you can have a school that's doing everything right, and they realize that the district has a policy, they're following that policy, they're on board, they're sharing the messages with parents across multiple platforms, they're sending the emails or flyers home that we send out on a given day. They're making sure that their staff is keeping kids in when appropriate, and then the principal changes. And so the next year we have a school that the year before was great, but now we have to get back in with the principal, talk to the school nurse, talk to the administrators or the coaches or whatever it is. And we spend a lot of time just connecting with schools on that basis, giving presentations to various groups. It is a constant a thing to try and, like I said, even when you've got someone that's doing it successfully, keep them doing it successfully moving forward. So we agree that whole making sure that, the school districts are plugged in and supporting this at the top level is key.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, I just want to check, Kimberly, you had raised your hand. Is there anything you wanted to add or?
No, I can just email Jamie in sake of time. I just wanted to, well, it's just a really quick question. I just wanted to know how you were keeping up with the events. Are you following different nonprofits within the boundary? Because I know there has been a couple of events this past weekend because it's Black Health Wellness Month. And it was a really big event with a lot of people out there that was given by African American Coalition. So I'm just wondering, how are you just following different orgs within the boundary? Or
it's really we this year it's been us responding to folks asking us to participate, and we have about 40 events between now and the end of April. Heather just questioned us. We did miss that one. And I know that, we had worked with a couple organizations on some MLK month, some Black History Month outreach, and then some Juneteenth stuff that's coming, but we totally missed the maternal health. Well, the Black health. Maternal health is the one that I was seeing a lot of great PR about. So Black maternal health.
Well, I would suggest that you follow African American Coalition, follow their website. You have an excellent person on our CSC, Dr. Curry, who's very active in the boundary. And then you have Eric Payne, who has Central Valley Urban Institute, who puts on a lot of events. So I would suggest that you connect with them to get this important information out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, Dr. Curry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about slide number 21, and this was the slide showing that Edison had these elevated numbers. Let's see if it's the same slide. 21. Yes, 21. I didn't hear anything about ammonium nitrate, and that seems to be one of, if I'm reading this correctly, that seems to be one of the areas, one of the toxins that is very different from a good air day to a moderate air day. And so is there any information that you're sharing about ammonium nitrate that you think is valuable to the community? Where do you think it's coming from? Why is it so excessively high in these particular spaces? And how are we figuring out the cumulative effects of what's in the same area of Edison versus other places? And so even as we heard the explanation about the air inversion and the fact that PM 2.45 is rising or showing an elevated level in the winter, it's not showing the same level in every place. So how are we accounting for the differences? What are we attributing those to? And what's the plan for following up on how to address those?
I think I'll cover that one. I see Genevieve also dropped in a great note there. Ammonium nitrate is a regional issue. It forms from the combustion sources is where you get the NOx, and then there's a ammonia already in the atmosphere, and so those combine and they form particulate matter, which makes it 2.5. But this is a great question, Dr. Curry, about how we're looking at this, and we're trying to take what we're seeing and learn from it, and seeking guidance from the steering committee. So looking at how do we do more cross comparison. We've been talking internally how to do that. Looking at different sites and when we're doing speciation, doing it in multiple sites, so then we can do a better comparison of areas to see, are the ammonium nitrate levels the same in all areas across the Fresno area, or do we see a market difference between Edison? And so we're going to look to do that this upcoming year, especially during the next wood burning season, to see what more we can learn, and maybe what actions there may be to look to help reduce some of what we're seeing.
So thank you. So are there stationary sources that we think might also in this area be active and in contributing to this level? And are we including that in any analysis that we put together, so that we're not, as much as it's helpful to know individual chemicals, we know that cumulatively there are their effects. So how are we accounting for that?
Yeah, so it continues, and kind of going way back to when we kind of displayed what the different sources of that contribute to different pollutants, and kind of going way back. It's somewhere in the magnitude of like 80 to 90% of the nitrogen oxides that are generated in the community come from mobile sources. That continues to be the case. But there's also residential sources of combustion that also add to that, in addition to businesses. So I mean, it's there's a lot of things that contribute to that overall. So I think by looking in, doing more research, doing comparisons of communities to see if there is a difference between the ammonium nitrate levels in different areas would be helpful. So I think that's our first step that we're going to apply. Some of the other things that we're going to be looking to do is, when we see high pressure fronts coming in, making sure that we're doing speciation data on those days and during those time periods, to better understand what may be adding to those issues. Like I said, a lot of times it's meteorological, but not always. And so we want to gain more knowledge in that area, and we want to share more of that information with the community. Great question. I see Genevieve has her hand up.
Yeah, Genevieve, go ahead.
Thanks. And thanks, Venice, for bringing up such really important questions. That got me thinking, asking about the stationary sources. I know you did analysis of the samples, and I'm not gonna be able to say it, the levoglucosin is a marker for wood burning. And I know we've been talking about residential wood burning and maybe even like illegal ag burning. I was wondering if you also were looking at wind direction, or can I assume that during these like high inversion days that there isn't much wind, and so emissions are kind of just like bobbing around kind of locally? So if that's the case, normally wind takes emissions from the biomass incinerator southeast away from Edison. But if there is no wind and emissions are kind of just accumulating at the source, is it possible that these higher readings would impact Edison, or would we also be seeing the higher readings at both Edison and like Calwa and Malaga? And so it kind of wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I'll let Robert.
Yeah, I'm happy to confirm, even provide a little bit that we have looked into a lot of those things, Genevieve, and there was just one slide where we had mentioned that during that one holiday period in November, there was almost no winds, but there actually the measurable winds at the nearby airport and some of the surrounding sites where we could get that wind data, these are less than half a mile per hour. So it's not totally zero winds, but definitely very calm. And the directionality on those was primarily from the northwest. And sorry.
So interesting. Could you go back a slide? I appreciate going back, just so I can see the correlation between Edison and the other monitors.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. You mean like one of the ones where we show the
Yeah.
where
Okay, so here it is. So it's
oh, okay.
Edison and Roosevelt.
And I think your comment and observation when we did look into the proximity of the biomass plant to the South Central Fresno community monitoring sites, we do see that it's to the southeast. So the plant is to the southeast, which is downwind. Even during these periods when we do see the wind directions from the northwest, so that makes the biomass plant downwind. Again, they're not very strong winds, of course, but there is some directionality to it. And then also we don't see those same really high concentrations at the monitors that are in between Edison and the biomass plant. So I think, if there is a possibility that the emissions are transporting, it doesn't seem to be impacting the monitors in between the biomass plant and Edison, at least not as significantly. I might imagine that if it's making it to Edison in a direct path, that it would also impact the other sites at a similar rate, or at least also cause those higher concentrations at the other sites more uniformly throughout the community.
Thank you. Is there any research project that could look at the transport of the biomass incinerators emissions over time? Is that a research project that exists, technology that exists? I know we can estimate and use models, but is there a way to actually calculate it in real time?
Yeah, I was thinking about as you mentioned, the modeling that gets done for permitted facilities in the district does account for a lot of the different factors that would help to understand the dispersion from a source, like some of the things that help us understand that in the model, help combine things like the height of the exhaust stack, the temperature of the flue gas, wind directions, of course, at the exhaust stack height, a lot of different parameters. I don't think very much I'm aware of that helps with that in real time with exactly where it's going. But you had mentioned the models, but outside of that, I don't have a lot of thought about it, and I'll continue to think about it. But anything else that is being done for sure, and I'm not sure what else can be done in a real-time basis to have like a historical analysis of where a specific source would be transporting the dispersion looks like.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to take up any more time. I appreciate you answering the questions. And just to get to Venice's question about what can we do about ammonium nitrate and our regional air pollution problem, the district and CARB did just kick off a public process to redesign our regional air pollution plan. It's called the PM 2.5 SIP. And so that is an opportunity for everyone to learn more about it and engage and offer guidance on how the district and the state should address our regional pollution problem. So I did want to highlight that. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to ask a question now. That high reading near the school, that wouldn't be attributable to the 250 rubbish fires that I think you reported, or was that at a different time period?
I don't have the specific days. That covered the entirety of this period, though. Well, not the entirety, because this started in October. So the 292 calls that the fire department received about burning happened between November 1st and February 28th.
Yeah, I was just wondering, could any of those fires that either the homeless or the people burning rubbish, could that contribute to that higher reading during that time period?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it at a lot of the different sites. There was a peak on that day. So I mean, there's the ability to be additive, to contribute to it, but it's not the sole reason why you would see a reading like that.
Thank you.
Ivanka, go ahead.
Yeah, this, I know the conversation got a little technical there, Robert and Genevieve, but I just wanted a little clarification on the wind patterns. I live over here. And so while generally, yes, southeast downwind of the boundary is normally the direction that we see wind patterns, I have stand outside my house and have thought this is really weird that I can feel and see, because of the light pollution, you can see the industrial area wind patterns coming northwest from the direction of where the biomass facilities and the industrial area is. So that would lead us back up to Edison, and you will be pulling in those pollutants to come back up west to the Edison monitor. So my question specifically, you said something and I didn't catch it, was when we are running our data on these monitors, do the monitors themselves have wind pattern data collection at the same time on that monitor? Or is that separate? You mentioned something about the airport's monitor. So I know it's a very specific question, but it really does allow you to hone in on what the culprit of, where the pollutant is coming from, if that wind pattern is actually being tracked in real time.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think that definitely is an important point that I'm glad you brought up. The wind direction is definitely not persistently from or consistently from the same direction all day. It definitely does shift around. And at the air monitoring sites, we do have wind speed and direction instruments that are available that we can match up that hourly pollutant concentration with that same hour average wind speed and direction. And some of the ways, and the reason I had mentioned the airport is just from any analysis of data in general, the more sensors and instruments that we can review help us to get a better idea of how broad is that wind direction. Is it just happening at that one site? We usually look at nearby airports because they always have wind instruments as well. So then we can get a better idea of, is this a more uniform wind direction that's affecting the larger area, or is it specific to potentially, if there's an area that's surrounded by taller buildings, you would expect different wind patterns, and we just want to look for those additional data points when we can. So airports are very helpful when we're looking for meteorology data.
And this is very important, and yes, it's technical, but for us as a community to understand on those peak days when we're honing at it, the Edison monitor at Thanksgiving time. And yes, we can say, well, yeah, there's a lot of rubbish fires. Yes, there might be scars of this, but if there's not direct, then we're still guessing. And that's why I'm asking for that specific data of that day. What direction is the wind pattern? Is it coming from the direction where we're assuming or guessing that it might be because of the homeless encampments that are burning to stay warm? Or is there something more specific that we can contribute it to based off of the wind pattern data? So thank you.
And if it's okay, I can just real briefly, I definitely want to say that I appreciate that feedback, because that's one of the main things that we hope to get from this analysis, is to get the different perspectives and maybe something that we haven't looked at. And so just to share real quickly on some of the ways that we do look into this and what we tried to bring to the presentation too, but it's always, you know, the more specific questions. We thought about these two specifically. So it's something that we see on the slide that's currently up, is most of the sites were higher on that same day. So that does suggest that there was some more regional broad type of pollutant accumulation that was happening. But there were, well, I guess specifically when we do see a single site, or maybe just a couple of sites in this case, that have more of an impact at them than other sites. And then when we see very low wind speeds, that suggests that the pollutant emissions are coming from very localized areas nearby the monitor. And so that's something else that we think about is, okay, where could that be coming from? And we don't know definitively exactly what it is, but those things help us to think more close to the monitor. When the wind speeds are very low, we would think of something, okay, what might be happening very close to the monitor? So some of the inspection and surveillance that we showed in the presentation too was just some of the things that we see that could be contributing to the more localized impacts.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna thank you, Vanka, too. I think that's, a really great point. And, always looking for ways to improve the presentations that we're giving, and including the information that makes sense. And this definitely does make sense, including wind data on, kind of maybe focusing in on some of these days where we're seeing these spikes, and then including the wind data. That's definitely something that, as as an enforcement team, you also want to know that, if we're seeing higher readings and we're sending enforcement staff out to investigate, we definitely want to know which way well, what we look at is where the winds are coming from, and focus our efforts upwind of that source, and looking for what may be causing some of those issues. But bringing that back and then showing that in the presentation, I think will be a big benefit. And so we'll definitely look to incorporate that feedback. Another thing that Ivanka brought up was just the kind of the disparity between access to pieces of electronics and technology. I was reading a Pew Research thing about access to smartphones, and I mean, it still shows that over a quarter of the people in low-income communities do not have smartphones, and an even greater percentage don't have access to internet or to computers. And so, I think there's a population. I think Jamie and her team do an outstanding job of going to school events and finding other opportunities. I think there's probably another section of the population that we're probably need some more assistance and more ideas on how to outreach, and that would probably be our older population within the communities, and how do we ensure that they're getting the information and that they're aware of the requirements. And so if anybody has any suggestions on that, I know we're kind of running short on time, but I mean, if there's like the organizations that Kimberly shared with us, I think are some great starting points. But I mean, if people have other ones, definitely, I think the mailers would probably be a good one. But I mean, if there are other ones, we definitely want to find ways to connect with, the entirety of the community. And, we greatly benefit from your help in that area.
Thank you, Ryan. Isabel, go ahead.
Sí, yo tengo una pregunta. Las industrias que se mira que están emitiendo con mucho humo, regularmente se mira que es blanco. Dicen que es vapor, pero cuando se mira esto oscuro como gris, puede ser también vapor, porque hay veces que se mira el humo blanco, pero hay veces que se mira como color gris, entonces yo no pienso que pueda ser vapor, no sé, ¿alguien me podría decir?
So Isabel, I think you're referring to Rio Bravo, correct?
Es cuando las industrias están echando como mucho humo, pero se mira blanco. Una vez yo reporté algo a una industria así y me dijeron que lo que era es vapor, pero en ocasiones se mira esto como color oscuro. Entonces yo no sé si puede ser lo mismo, vapor en color oscuro y color blanco.
Trying to remember the specific control equipment that that facility has. I believe they have a wet scrubber. I'm not entirely sure, so I definitely don't want to be wrong. But you know, when there's to get rid of particulate matter, there's different control technologies that are used depending on the type of operation that people run. And so I believe, yeah, Genevieve dropped in there. There's two ways that they usually control particulate matter from glass plants, and that's the use of what's called a wet scrubber, and it's basically like they run the exhaust gases through almost like a sprinkler type system that removes a lot of the particulate, and then it goes through what's called an electrostatic precipitator. And what that does is it's charged plates, and the particulate matters themselves have a charge to them. And so as they're going by these plates, they stick to the plates. And so it further cleans the air. And so I believe those are the two control. And typically what happens with a wet scrubber, you see a water plume coming out the stack of those types of facilities.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, Isabel, go ahead. I saw you unmuted, Isabel.
Gracias.
Okay. Genevieve, go ahead.
I wanted to respond to Isabel's comment. So there is the facility needs to comply with what's called the visible emissions standard. I may not have gotten that perfect, but basically the emissions coming out of that smokestack can't be super dark, because that means that it's polluting more than it should. And so if you see emissions coming out of that stack that don't look white, that look more gray or darker, you can report that, and an enforcement agency can come out, and they're trained to visually measure the smoke. And so you can report it using Fresno Ivan, or you can report it directly to the air district, and we can know if it's polluting more than it should. And lastly, I'll just explain what I wrote in the chat. That facility is using what was once known as the best available technology. However, there's better technology out there, just like, you know, our phones and our computers improve, so does pollution technology. And so now the best available is considered these Gore-Tex bag houses it's basically like blowing the emissions through a sock, and the sock kind of captures all the particles. But these bag houses can withstand really high heat. And that's why we didn't have them in the past, but now we have Gore-Tex material. So the facility could theoretically improve its emission control technology. And we could also report when we see dark smoke. and see if that's a violation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Genevieve. We can go to Ryan before we start wrapping up this air monitoring update.
I turned my mic on and then I turned it off. Sorry. I just wanted to agree with Genevieve. Yeah, I mean, if so basically what happens is in the plume, if you're seeing a lot of what looks like smoke coming out of there, yes, please notify us as quickly as possible. We have staff available to go out there. And what Genevieve is referring to, there's an EPA method that our staff have to get certified for and to be able to read smoke. And we, based on our training and certifications, we're able to take enforcement action. And if we see non-compliance, we would be able to issue a notice of violation, and then the facility would be required to quickly correct the issue, and there would also be a monetary penalty for any non-compliance.
Thank you, Ryan. So we are a bit over our time for tonight, but I just want to pause and make sure that anyone has a chance to share any final questions, or if there's an action item that you want to bring up right now for us to record before we close out. We've definitely been taking note of all the feedback on more information that you would like to hear in the future presentations, such as incorporate wins to get a better idea of those sources. Any last thoughts or questions before we close out? Okay. Well, thank you so much to Kimberly and your team, as well as the Air District and CARB for putting all that effort into the presentation. We can move to standing updates. And tonight, I think we have a general update from the city of Fresno. Jennifer, is there anything that you would like to share at this moment, possibly about the truck reroute study?
Yes. Oh, so glad that you mentioned that. So the city is conducting surveys right now. We have a set of surveys with QR codes that are in English and in Spanish, and I can send them to the district to share with everyone. We are starting, they're starting to come in, but we'd love to have more. We'd really like to have all of you share with your friends and make sure that we're getting as high a volume of surveys as possible to make sure that we're capturing all of the comments and information on the truck reroute study. So that is available, and I will get those over to the district.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any quick questions about that update? If not, then we can move on. Are there any updates from the Air District they would like to share?
This is Stephanie. I have a quick update, and I'm happy also to pass to anyone else on my team that might, but I wanted to share, I hope you all got the email. We did send out a press release, but that we're super excited that the urban greening measure, the contract for that with Tree Fresno and CCEJN has been executed. And so we're looking forward to hopefully in these coming months in the spring, and of course in the next 3 years, to begin tree planting projects. Our vegetative barriers measure is getting close as well, that contract, and we'll just continue to bring updates to the group as these projects move forward.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other updates from the Air District team or questions from the CSC? If not, would love to invite Carb if there are any updates that you have to share tonight.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. We just have one quick update. I'll let everybody know that the community air grants have reopened and the applications are now due April 24th. And I will drop a link in the chat for you guys.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions about that? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any updates from Caltrans?
Yes, thank you, Liz. I just have one quick update. One thing that we've been sharing with our local partners, this is in regards to the Safe Streets and Roads for All. A notice of funding opportunities was just announced. Call for project, or the applications are due July 10th, and what we're offering to the local agencies is that if any letters of support of request, we do have a point of contact for that. So we've been letting all our local agencies know of letter of support requests. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, David. I'm seeing a hand from Lilia. Go ahead.
Sí, solamente quiero agradecer a Ana Stone. Ha estado en comunicación con ella esta semana pasada relacionado con las aplicaciones. Parece que le he mandado, hay varias residentes de aquí de esta área del ABC 17 que están interesadas en ser parte del comité y hacer levantar su voz relacionado con lo que está pasando en sus comunidades. Entonces, gracias, Ana, y gracias a ustedes que nos dan la oportunidad de que más residentes participen en esto.
Thank you so much, Lilia. And it's definitely exciting to hear that folks are excited to join. Yeah, Stephanie, go ahead.
Thanks, Liz. I have a quick update related to what Lilia just shared too. We want to thank Lilia for sharing so many contacts. We have received, I just wanted to also give a quick update about the resident recruitment process that's ongoing right now. We have received some applications and just also contacts from folks. Thanks to everyone who's sharing out that information, and just based on some of the feedback that we've gotten that there is still interest in it. We did extend the deadline to next Friday, the 21st. And if anyone has any questions or is missing kind of the applications or has contacts they want the Air District to reach out to, please feel free to share that with us.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, Ivanka, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give updates on land use projects of concern that are happening in the 617 area. The first one, as we've had Caltrans join this call, as a steering committee, we want to have representation from High Speed Rail, invite them into this space within the 617 boundary along Church Avenue and the old Golden State Highway that runs alongside the Highway 9941. There is going to be a high-speed rail expansion overpass put in place for the high-speed rail. And at this point, they do not have a good track record of community outreach. If you know anything about Three Palms area where Clinton 99 intersects, for that high-speed rail, there is a mobile home park that was low-income mobile home park completely left out of the high-speed rail environmental impact reporting process. So now this is another project for high-speed rail that is happening within 617 boundary. And we do not know yet because they have not had those community outreach meetings. So trying to get ahead of their improper outreach, have them show up in a space where they can actually give us updates and tell us exactly how they're going to include the community. There's a 617 community that runs, it's a very interesting little community that's been kind of cut off from both of the freeways that sits in there. So that's one project of concern. I don't know if David Padilla from Caltrans has the right to respond to any of this, but Leadership Council is representing BHC and community members in a lawsuit litigating against an opposition of the overpass of North Avenue along 99. Because again, when it's regarding environmental impacts, community is again left out. So we do feel there's enough type of violations at play that should have been considered before that project moves forward. Another project within 617 area is the Maris Chemical Warehouse. This is a project along Cherry Avenue on Dorothy Avenue that sits within 617 boundary north of the North Avenue. It's a chemical warehouse storage facility. Planning Commission has just passed that. I do not know if while we at Leadership Council appealed it on behalf of residents that live in South Fresno, we do not know if the Air District made any comments on that. I would like to see that it's not me bringing this to the attention of this steering committee, that it's the Air District that is putting this as part of our agenda of industrial projects of concern that are happening in the 617 boundary and bringing that to the attention of the steering committee members sitting on this panel and telling us and emailing back to us your letter of concern, your opposition letter, your comment letter in response to these projects that are coming to either the implementation committees of the city or to the Planning Commission. And the last one that I wanted to mention that will be headed to Planning Commission is the Central Trucking Transport Facility that is located less than a half a mile from the Orange Center School District on Cherry Avenue, south of North Avenue. That will be a trucking transport of heavy duty trucks. They have the business that will actually be there has stated that they will specifically be doing transporting for Amazon. So if you know those streets, that's putting the school in direct alignment of having more trucks passing the school. And back to the Caltrans, we never really got a real chance to discuss that in this space of whether community, I would like to see, and this is talking to the community steering committee members on this call, that I don't know if we need to take a vote or if you agree that projects like this that are going to impact the community should be brought to the attention and an actual vote given by the steering committee members here of whether we are the ones that are saying, okay, that project, it looks like it is okay, or that project does not look like it's okay. Because the narrative that a lot of industry can move forward with is if we're not hearing from the Air District, it must be okay. Well, not just the Air District, but what about this steering committee that is made up of the members of the 617 boundary? So I would like to say that it would be nice if we could have some voting or consensus on these projects that are moving forward and what our opinion is on that. And it's actually a documented opinion of what's coming out of the Air District CSC.
Thank you, Ivanka. And we're definitely noting all of that down. I see Ryan, your hand is up.
Turn my mic on there. Yeah, just like trying to understand better what Ivanka is talking about in regards to, you know, I mean, if the CSC as a body wants to provide input on behalf of the CSC, you know, I think that's their right to do. I think if it's trying to say what the district has to like provide from the organization itself, I think that's a different issue. You know, we definitely listened. I mean, all of the correspondence that you know, we provide, the comments that we provide have drastically changed in response to our involvement in AB 617. The types of comments that we're providing now, the input that we're providing into projects that are even being considered, you know, the desire for these projects to include mitigation, to reduce or eliminate impacts. Those are all things that have been incorporated to the letters that we've shared with the steering committee and we've gotten positive feedback on. That continues to be the case. I mean, we're still continuing to provide those comments specific to the central trucking and transportation. We provided, you know, a lot of feedback and comments on that project in regards to some of the environmental information that was included in the project. So yeah, I mean, we are you know, very involved in you know, providing input.
Is it possible, Ryan, that you could then, instead of me giving an update from my end of what I know, you actually, I want to see that when we're doing this part of this CSC and giving updates, that there's actual, you know, open communication of what updates are being done. If you know that there's an industrial project that's happening in the 617 boundary that is of concern for the Air District, and the Air District made comments of what your recommendations should be for mitigations, are you willing to commit to bringing that to the attention of this steering committee?
Yeah, I think we're willing to commit to finding a way. And, you know, I know it's been on there for a long time. And like we talked about the subcommittee, you know, and, you know, we've talked with the city and they've shared some resources that that they are looking to make. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Jennifer, but, you know, to make it more easy for people to see projects themselves and see what opportunities for them to participate in the commenting, the participatory process, you know, involvement in those projects. So I mean, you know, we understand, we've heard the recommendations, and you know, we're trying to you know, develop more robust process to allow more people to participate.
Thank you. And Ivanka, I think I'm hearing you would like perhaps a more formal process, at least within our CSC meetings where.
Yes.
Yeah, so perhaps, so we have our standing updates as a regular agenda item. So maybe we can make a sub item, or at least have it be more specific where we know that at this time in the agenda, the Air District could possibly come prepared to present just those brief updates on what those new projects are, and that
Yeah,
they have.
yes, because at this point, there is no confidence that these projects are being viewed on behalf of this steering committee. If I'm the one from the EJ perspective that's bringing this to the attention, Ryan, that's not, that's not the Air District saying we are keeping an eye on and truly committing to making sure that these projects that are of concern in a 617 boundary area are actually getting addressed. And, you know, part of that commitment is bringing them to the attention of the CSC, allowing the CSC to have a conversation about what it is, what those impacts might look like, and letting us share out, if we're sharing through email, like share out what the comment letters are that the Air District is presenting to the city.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying, and that makes sense. And I think we can note that and talk about ways to have that be a more formal process. It seems like multiple CSC members in the chat are agreeing with that as well. Kimberly, go ahead.
I have a quick question. Wasn't there a land use subcommittee that was established within the CSC? And if we still have that committee that existing, those updates should be brought to the subcommittee first. They should be aware of that if that subcommittee still exists. It shouldn't be EJ advocate telling the CSC what's going on within the boundary. I'm just suggesting a little bit more open communication, so we can be aware of these projects that are taking place. But I was just wondering, didn't we establish a land use subcommittee within this CSC?
Yeah, thank you. We hear you. Go ahead.
Can I get an answer? Yes or no? Or is that something that we can commit to do?
Yeah, I'll answer, Kimberly. Yes, there is a land use subcommittee that was developed that's still in place. We're trying to work with the city on finding times to be able to meet to talk about those things.
So there hasn't been any meetings yet? Still in the process? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and in the meantime, if there's no space for that with the subcommittee, I think we are agreeing to commit to bringing that to the CSC in this space. Are there any final thoughts to add on that specific update before we close out this item? I think we have one last update from the Air District.
And this is Stephanie. Maybe before that, I do want to give space from somewhat the UC Davis research team. I believe they have a couple members here that wanted to make a quick announcement.
Hi, yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you to the Hard Air and Company team and Air District for giving us time to make a quick announcement. But yeah, we're part of the UC Davis team. My name is Peter Nguyen, a graduate student under Dr. Jonathan London at UC Davis. You probably have seen the Air District has sent out a survey that we are currently conducting across the state, across the 17 communities a couple weeks ago. And we just wanted to reiterate and encourage folks who have not completed that survey yet to please complete it. If you have the time, we appreciate any feedback. This helps us to understand and evaluate the implementation of AB 617. And I'll also pop into the chat Dr. Jonathan London and my contact info if you have any questions, and also the links to the survey. We did just extend the survey to May 12th, so to give folks more time to complete it in the next month. But we do have the links in both English and Spanish. And we are holding a raffle for resident members of the CSC to win one of 5 prizes. So yeah, we encourage you to take 10 minutes out of your time to complete the survey, and we appreciate any feedback. And I'll pop into the chat more information on the survey. But thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.
And I have one last update from the district. It's kind of related to the recruitment update that we have generally, and also the potential for an in-person meeting. We have been working in other communities, our other AB 617 communities, to hold in-person meetings, and we'd really love to do that with the Fresno community as well. So a thought that we wanted to tee up with the group is with the recruitment of our new resident members, we did want to plan to hold an onboarding session. So what we'd like to kind of propose to the group is that instead of our May CSC meeting, that we'd plan to have a big onboarding session with our new resident members and work with you all on that session and invite anyone on the CSC who is interested to participate in that onboarding session. And then also in the meantime, as we're doing resident recruitment and kind of getting them onboarded, what we'd love to do is bring them on once they're onboarded into an in-person meeting in June. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and I'm happy to take any feedback on that. But if all sounds good, we'll plan to kind of have our resident recruitment in May, and hopefully a really interactive and engaging in-person meeting for our June meeting.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any initial thoughts on that proposal. So we just heard that the idea could be for our next meeting in May, have that be an opportunity to start onboarding our new CSC members, and then potentially using June as an opportunity to meet in person for the first time in a long time, introduce the new CSC members to the process and have a more engaging meeting. So that is the proposal. Would love to hear thoughts. Yeah, Estela, go ahead.
Y mi pregunta es que si después de esas reuniones, las reuniones van a ser en persona todas o nada más sería en ese mes de junio.
This is Stephanie. That's a super great question. Our plan is to generally, I think we're thinking maybe a couple of meetings throughout the whole year, but we're not planning on holding, multiple in-person meetings. After that June in-person meeting, we'd go back to Zoom and let you all know about the next in-person, because we have heard the feedback that I think folks like the flexibility of also doing in-person and then also mostly Zoom meetings. So we're looking almost at like a hybrid situation.
Bueno, para mí por Zoom es mucho más mejor para mí porque a veces es en la hora que mis hijos salen en la escuela. Bueno, hay muchos contratiempos para mí en ese tiempo y no podría estar casi en persona.
Thanks, Estela. Yeah, we appreciate that feedback and we agree. We hear people, I think, like the flexibility of Zoom. So most of our meetings will stay that way, and we'll plan to just have an in-person meeting every so often just so we can meet as a group and see each other kind of face to face.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Great question. Lilia, go ahead.
Sí, tengo nada más una pregunta. El año pasado yo fui a Charlotte a una conferencia nacional donde había participantes de otros estados en un foro que hicieron allá de San Joaquín Aire y Contaminantes. Y la verdad, fue una pena no mirar líderes de la comunidad o residentes de aquí de la comunidad del área de California, principalmente del área 617. ¿Ustedes no consideran eso de mandar a los líderes o a los, no sé, a algún representante de aquí del Fresno principalmente a esas convocatorias? Me interesaría mucho que mandaran a alguien, porque es bueno que sepan también lo que se está trabajando aquí, cómo se está trabajando aquí, cómo estamos haciendo el trabajo para que haya más motivación también en otros estados. Entonces, es una sugerencia nada más, que consideren el día de mañana mandar a algún líder de la comunidad, o ya sea un líder o ya sea un representante en equipo, para que hagamos eso a nivel nacional.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. Stephanie, did you want to respond?
Yeah, this is Stephanie. I know generally that our air district team, lots of people including like people from our outreach team and our air monitoring team do attend conferences all over. I know some of our team was just in like Oklahoma City for a conference. If there's a specific one, Lilia, that you wanted to share with us, we're happy to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions and clarification. And so I think just to close that out, do we have any, I guess, rejections to the proposal for using our May meeting to onboard new CSC members and then potentially having an in-person meeting just for the month of June? I'm not hearing any. So I think we can close out our standing update agenda item. And we can move to our action item tracker review, which we moved from earlier in the meeting, and I believe Steph will walk us through that.
Thanks, Liz. I know we're getting late in the evening. These will be super fast updates. going to share my screen, and these again are just a routine check-in of some of the actions that were requested from our last CSC meeting. We just have a couple updates, including, so I'll start with the ones that are still in progress. One of those being that from the last meeting, it was requested for CARB to set up a meeting with Dr. Curry to discuss feedback from last meeting, and they did schedule it, but haven't unfortunately been able to meet just due to needing to reschedule it because of unforeseen circumstances. And these next two items are related to the Air District connecting with the City of Fresno on the Land Use Subcommittee, and kind of in that subcommittee discussing reviewing land use projects, and the Air District is continuing to work with the City of Fresno to schedule the next Land Use Subcommittee. Go ahead and pop over to our completed items. One of those being that we did send out a text message if you had signed up for our text alerts. And so we did send that out again this morning. If you didn't get it and would like to be added to our text notification list, email us at eb617@valleyair.org. We did provide an update that in February, the Fresno Unified School Board took an item, or sorry, the Fresno Unified took an item to their board related to two of our CERT measures, which was it was electric school buses and air filtration. There were some follow-up questions regarding it. And so this is, we have just provided a response to those. And so we are working with Fresno Unified School District to complete their applications. They applied for 10 buses, which have to service Fresno Unified School District schools within our boundary. And related to school air filtration, they applied for 31 school sites, each of those having 30 to 40 devices. And those applications do include units in portable classrooms. A couple of last items here. There was a follow-up item regarding kind of a CSC representation on the Truck Reroute Study Advisory Committee. And so as a response, AB 617 CSC members can participate in the Truck Reroute Study Community Advisory Group and at the same capacity as other CAG members. And finally, the CARB had provided an update about commenting on their annual report, and that feedback was due on March 25th. That's all I have for action items. Happy to take any questions. If not, I will pass it back to Liz.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, and thank you all for bearing with us as we go a little over, we can now move to wrapping up our meeting, sharing some action items and our next meeting date. And I would love to pass it to Bekela to walk us through those.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone see my screen?
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, so what we have here are a few action items from throughout our time together today. So number one, first off, the CSC is invited to engage with CARB's AQView tool and provide feedback. Feel free to refer to this link here, I believe also in the chat as well for that. Two, the AD will explore alternative programs to rubbish burning in collaboration with the city. So Jennifer Clark will report back to the city of Fresno and CSC around our commentary on that. For the AD will be distributing outreach materials to the CSC and community members who are interested in distributing information regarding air quality. Next, the AD will work with the city of Fresno to start land use subcommittee meetings to really discuss how the CSC members can be made aware of projects in the community. Almost last but not least, establish formal land use planning agenda items for the land use planning subcommittee meeting agenda, CSC meeting agenda, and agenda setting debrief. Agenda setting / debrief meetings for an open and transparent communication about new land use projects of concern that are being proposed within the AB 617 boundary. And then last but not least, we'll be using our May 2023 CSC meeting to onboard new CSC members and to plan to have an in-person meeting in June 2023. But wanting to recap that, moving forward, we're hoping to continue in a hybrid mode of meeting together. Any questions? Oh.
Yeah. Michaela, this is Stephanie. I also did want to clarify the group that will plan to let folks know about the May onboarding session, because we want to make sure we work with the new residents that are joining to see their availability.
Amazing. Thanks for that clarification, Stephanie. Okay. Any additions or corrections or anything else in terms of these action items for today? And I can zoom back out a little bit here. Okay, if not, I would also like, oh my goodness, my eyes. To just make note that we are not having our April agenda setting meeting in light of our meeting that we had last month to kind of chat through the planning that we did during that time. So our next meeting will be in May 10th, that Wednesday evening. And so at this time, I'd love to invite Kimberly and Ryan to share any closing remarks, and would also, love to open for public comment as well.
Do we go to public comment first before we do closing remarks?
I believe closing remarks first.
Okay, just asking a question. Well, for me, I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to co-host this evening. Thank you for all the feedback in regards to the community air monitoring update. I really tried my best to make it as easy to follow and to understand for our CSC members and the public who's watching. And you guys have a good evening, and I'll pass it to Ryan.
Yeah, I just want to thank you again, Kimberly. I really appreciate all your efforts, the time that you spent working with us. I really appreciate the feedback that we got on how to continue to improve the air monitoring presentations, things to consider when looking at how we go about doing the air monitoring within the community, to additional considerations to make. Appreciate it. I think it was a very productive meeting. We got a lot of action items, things to follow up on. Also, I wish Irina was still here. I should have said that was her first time presenting to the public tonight, and so I appreciate her and everything that she did, and I thought she did a great job. And I'm sure you'll see more of her. And it's nice too. Myself being an Edison High graduate, Irina is also from the area, and she went to Edison High as well. So, yep, Kimberly's a fan. All right.
I'm a graduate.
Also a Tiger.
Yeah, I'm a Tiger for
It's
life.
an all Tiger meeting tonight. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kimberly and Ryan. Would love to open the floor for any final public comments before we close for the evening. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time, for hanging in there. We made it. And we just so hope that you have such lovely rests of your Wednesday.